Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome to another Sentinel vlog. It's been a while since I've put out a video, since I did my Big Finish 2025 video of releases I'm looking forward to. It's been a combination of a lack of drive and just not knowing what I want to talk about. So I thought I would put this out real quick and just have something to do for fun. Now, what prompted this? So, in the circles I hang around in, I feel like I've seen this come up a lot, this prompt. If Doctor Who was an American show, who would you cast as the Doctor? Now, I've seen this approach done in one of two ways. One, a completely original idea for a Doctor, a completely original take on it, or a unique one. Or two, recast the show, recast the existing Doctors as American actors. I've seen this take done both ways. But in the absence of content, I thought I would just go through the series and give fan casts to who I think would be the best choices for if Doctor Who was an American show. Now, there are some things we're going to go over before we get into the list like normal. So, number one, I will be stopping at the 14th Doctor, just because we are still in the middle of the Ncuti Gatwa era, and there might be character arc stuff or a journey the character goes on. I feel like we have a full grasp on who the 15th Doctor as a character is. So it's like, if I do this now, I might regret my choice later. Again, even though this is something just for fun. And two, I'm gonna let myself get a little unhinged with this. I feel like when I've seen this thought exercise done, people were restricting their choices based on similar physicalities, not just acting styles or similar performances the actors have given, but similar physicalities as well. I kind of allowed myself to get a little more unhinged with my picks. I wish I could have gotten more crazy, but that's on me. So, yeah, you're going to see some very unconventional picks. And in that regard, too, whenever I fan cast, I like to go against the grain, so to speak. So, like, you see a choice that a bunch of people made, I like to try and avoid that choice. And in this thought exercise, some of those choices I've seen come up in the past that I see people keep making when this prompt pops up that I want to try to avoid include, just as some examples, Vincent Price as the third Doctor, Gene Wilder as the fourth Doctor, Kyle MacLachlan as the eighth Doctor, or Alan Tudyk as the 10th Doctor. Again, just great choices, don't get me wrong, but for this thought exercise, because I like to go against the grain, I want to try to avoid them. So I guess that's everything. You know how my listicles work. Without further ado, let's just jump right in. For this video, we will be going in chronological order, so we will actually be starting with the Fugitive Doctor. Kind of the Doctor before they became the Doctor, or if you look at the expanded universe, like the Other, or things like that. Let's not get into that here. I want to try to stick to the TV show as much as possible. I might dip my toes into the expanded universe for this, but the Fugitive Doctor, you can kind of see the person the Doctor would become here. She has some of those traits, but she is not the Doctor as we know them yet. She is very tough. She's willing to get violent, she's willing to make decisions that other Doctors would not make. She is characterized by her tough exterior, but she is still very intelligent, very thoughtful. She still does plan things out. For me, for the Fugitive Doctor, there was only one choice. Pam Grier. Pam Grier is a phenomenal actress. Spoilers, because I'm doing this unscripted. You're going to hear that phrase a lot. Who is characterized by her tough role, by her sort of tough, badass roles, particularly in the 70s, films like Coffee, or what was it, Foxy Brown, or even more recently, films like Jackie Brown, or even her small her brief appearance in Smallville as Amanda Waller. I think throughout her filmography and her roles, Greer has shown she can be the tough yet intelligent characterization of the fugitive doctor. Boy, I'm going to need to work on some better conclusions. Also, just realized I forgot to add this in my intro. With this list, I do also want to try to pick actors who would have been active at the time. So, now we're going to the first Doctor, 1963 to 1966. The one who. So I wanted to pick an actor who would have been around and active at this time as an example. The first Doctor is the one that started it all. They essentially come off as a grumpy, grouchy old man, but it's very quickly clear this is coming from a place of defensiveness. He doesn't know who Ian and Barbara are. He doesn't trust them, so he thinks they are a threat to him and Susan. But over the course of his travels, he slowly warms up to them, and this really opens the first Doctor up to learning to travel with other people and make friends across his travels. As well as, starting to see the layers pulling back, we start to see a more impish figure in who the Doctor is. So, behind the scenes as well, William Hartnell's career had kind of stagnated at this point, and it really was Doctor Who that kind of rejuvenated it, so to speak. So, along with just being a fantastic actor, there is an actor for this part that I think is perfect for the first Doctor. Not just because it's a role he could pull off, because again, fantastic actor, but also he was on a similar trajectory to William Hartnell. He had reached sort of acclaim and renown early on, and then by this point his career had stagnated, and then really it was doing a TV show, a very popular TV show at the time, that helped rejuvenate his career. So, for our hypothetical American Doctor Who TV show, our first Doctor, Burgess Meredith. And then, of course, here comes the major conflict. Do I want to save the reveal to be the closing point of each of these segments, or do I want to introduce them first and then kind of elaborate a little bit more? I feel like I'm going to be going back and forth as I make this video. Anyway, on to the second Doctor. And for this thought exercise, this is where we have to do a little bit of suspension of disbelief, because you have to remember the idea of regeneration was created in Doctor Who out of necessity. The BBC wanted to keep the show going, but they had to replace William Hartnell because it was getting harder for him to work because of his illness. And Burgess Meredith, he was active well into the 90s, I believe. Maybe the 2000s, I don't remember. I think it was the late 90s though. But anyway, so, had that been the case here, obviously the show would have just gone on with Burgess Meredith. So we're going to just put that thought aside for right now. And we're going to continue the trajectory. Anyway, we're moving on to the second Doctor. So the second Doctor is kind of known as the Cosmic Hobo. He's a bit of a clown. He puts on this goofy, almost bubbly, hyper persona. But then we see that beneath that, there's a bit of a darker side to him. He's a bit of this master schemer, and the clownish way he presents himself is almost a way to make people lower their guard. In a lot of ways, the second Doctor is the template for the seventh Doctor, who would be doing what the second Doctor does on a much bigger scale. So my pick for the second Doctor in a hypothetical American Doctor Who is Don Knotts. Probably most famous for his role as Barney Fife in the Andy Griffith Show, I feel Don Knotts is perfect for the physical clownishness of what the second Doctor puts himself off as. As for that darker side, there's only really one performance in his filmography that I can think of that makes me think he could pull it off, and it's a performance that came much later in the movie Pleasantville. But all around, Knotts is a brilliant comedic talent that I think could bring the Cosmic Hobo to life. Maybe in a different way, but still to life. Apologies, the sun's starting to set, so I had to change my lighting. We're now on to the Third Doctor. The Third Doctor is a very different individual from his predecessors. He's more characterized by his willingness to fight physically if need be. The Third Doctor also initially presents himself as icy and cold, but the longer you work with him and you get to know him, he melts, forming warm, lifelong bonds with his friends and companions. He is known for his politically charged stories and butting heads with those in authority. So for me, there was only one obvious choice here. And because I feel like there's a very sort of similar character that this actor played. For our Third Doctor, Leonard Nimoy. Probably most famous as Spock in Star Trek, the original series. I feel like there is a lot of similarities between Spock and between the Third Doctor. Now, admittedly, because I'm going to be drawing comparisons to other roles these actors played, when I do fan casting like this for the Doctor, I don't like to do that normally because it's just this sense of, well, this role this actor is playing is so much like the Doctor, just cast them as the Doctor. It's like, it's trying to play, just have them play this role over again. This is one of my big issues with people fan casting Eddie Redmayne as the Doctor, because his character in that film series that I won't name was just the 11th Doctor. But I feel like here, because I am fan casting pre-existing Doctors, you kind of have to draw on these actors' filmographies for roles similar in characterization or performance to them. And like I said, I feel like there is a lot of similarities between Spock and the Third Doctor. Again, on top of, I'm saying it again, Nimoy just being a phenomenal actor. That brings us to the Fourth Doctor, and one of my more unhinged casting decisions here. So, the Fourth Doctor. Tom Baker is really the first actor, because he says this all the time in interviews and stuff, he's really the first actor to characterize it as, oh, I was just playing myself as the Doctor. And exercise some later actors, I can't cite one specifically that I can think of right now, would follow. The Fourth Doctor is characterized, well, best by a quote he said, I believe in his first season. What's the point of growing up if you still can't be childish every now and then? He is very outspoken, very fun. He's one of the few Doctors that I can think of that doesn't really have a character arc of any kind. Where he starts is where he ends. He explores the universe with great zeal. And there is only one actor I could think of that could bring a similar energy to that role. She was also known around this time for having what is widely regarded as one of the best sketch comedy shows of all time. Our American Fourth Doctor, the one, the only, Carol Burnett. The Fifth Doctor is up next, and this one's going to be tough to characterize because the Fifth Doctor is one of the Doctors I dislike. If you've seen me do my rankings or talk about it, and I feel like in listing the Doctor's qualities or characteristics of Doctors I dislike, I feel like that's going to pivot into why I don't like them. So I'm going to try to avoid that. The Fifth Doctor is the complete antithesis of the Fourth Doctor in every way. Where the Fourth Doctor was big and loud and bombastic, the Fifth Doctor is quiet, reserved. He is honestly the one I would call the everyman Doctor, unassuming. He is, he sort of blends into the crowd. He doesn't want to make noise unless he feels he has to. So, we're looking for a run-of-the-mill everyman. Someone who could be unassuming. There was an actor around this time, well, not around this time, because now we're into the 80s, but who was quite famous, quite popular for almost a dual role he played as both as a great hero and sort of his mild-mannered alter ego. uh, my choice for the Fifth Doctor is, of course, Adam West, who I think, because of the popularity and success and later memification of the Batman show, it kind of gets swept under the rug just how good a performer he was. Especially if you watch the Batman show, he's actually quite versatile. The Sixth Doctor is my favorite Doctor, and I make no bones about it. Um, so, if you've watched my channel for any period of time, you know I never miss an opportunity to bring this up. Colin Baker, and this is where I'm really going to go into kind of the expanded universe a little bit, is kind of the jack of all trades doctor, whereas other doctors excel at one point or another, the second doctor has this impishness to him. The third doctor is very stoic. The seventh doctor is very dark. The eighth doctor is a romantic, and so on and so on. The sixth doctor really is the jack of all trades doctor. Again, whereas one doctor focuses on like one particular aspect of the doctor's character, Colin Baker plays them all masterfully in equal measure. But on TV, he is primarily known for his sort of acerbic charm. He's got a bit of a dark edge to him that, over time has to soften. So there was one actor in the 80s who was very prominent for his sort of, again, fantastic actor, but he's known for some of his more darker roles, even to this day, including one of the most famous horror icons of all time. But I really feel like that dark edge the Sixth Doctor initially has, as well as the softening over time, he would just nail. So, ladies and gentlemen, Brad Dourif as the Sixth Doctor. We're finishing up the classic series now with the Seventh Doctor. Originally starting off as sort of a pale imitation of the Second Doctor, the Seventh Doctor passes himself off as a clown, a clever, goofy little imp who seems to pose no threat. But underneath there is the mind of a master schemer, and as I said before, on a scale the Second Doctor never could have dreamed. He has made planets burn to accomplish his goals. The Seventh Doctor, more often than not, will have already won before he's even arrived. The Seventh Doctor in this exercise was kind of one of the toughest doctors to cast. But again, I feel like there is an actor who I picked that I feel could do a better job than anyone else. Carol O'Connor. Carol O'Connor in the 70s was probably best known for the bigoted right-wing Archie Bunker on All in the Family. Probably less well-known, though still very popular, he was one of the leads in the TV series adaptation of the film In the Heat of the Night. Now, I've watched a few episodes of In the Heat of the Night. Good show. I don't think as good as the movie, but still surprisingly good for what it is. And I think between Archie Bunker and his character in the Heat of the Night, I think O'Connor displays that kind of, versatility or that kind of intensity that the Seventh Doctor needs to have. That brings us to the Eighth Doctor, and honestly, the First Doctor I'm kind of second-guessing myself on. More on that in a second. Well, one, because Kyle MacLachlan is so perfect for this role, but the Eighth Doctor. I'm going to try to ignore the Time War stuff for right now and just focus on how he came across in the movie. Personality-wise, the Eighth Doctor is, I feel, the most kindred spirit to the Fourth Doctor, displaying similar, what's a good word? Goofiness? No. Right. A similar, I don't want to say oafishness, that's not right. But, they have similar outlooks on life. They just want to really have fun and explore and be adventurous. They are free spirits. There we go. That's a good descriptor. The thing that really sets them apart, though, is that the Eighth Doctor is much more romantic. And I don't just mean that two of his major companions, Grace Holloway and Charlie Pollard, there seems to have been romantic feelings in regards to them, but just more, the rose tinted glasses through which he views the world. And this is kind of where my doubt comes in. Like I said, so far on this list, the Eighth Doctor is really the first Doctor I'm kind of second guessing myself on, because in that similar free spirited, kindred spirit to the Fourth Doctor approach, I think this actor would absolutely nail. But it is the other side of it, the romantic side of the Eighth Doctor, that I'm kind of doubtful on. But anyway, my pick for the Eighth Doctor is Harold Ramis. Probably best known for his role as Egon Spengler in Ghostbusters. I mean, let's be honest, Egon is just the Doctor. I think Ramis is, at this point, probably more known for his work behind the camera as a writer and director as well, in movies like Stripes and Caddyshack. But, again, despite being a part of, involved in some way, behind the scenes, these big, bombastic, goofy comedies, I do think his performance as Egon really does show, how well-rounded he was as a performer. Alright, remember, we're going in chronological order, so the War Doctor is up next. With the outbreak of the Time War, the Eighth Doctor realizes he does not have the necessary skills to fight and win, and he realizes that in order to win, he would have to completely betray all of his values and everything he represents. So with the help of the Witches of Karn, he forces a regeneration upon himself to create a version of the Doctor that is willing to betray his values. In short, on paper, the War Doctor is a monster. Someone who is willing to do the things the Doctor never could, wouldn't do and never could, in order to win by any means possible. So an actor who could play this role. And honestly, I think for an American Doctor Who, they would actually fully realize what the War Doctor is in a way that Doctor Who still seems scared to do. And also on top of that, he's an actor who, like John Hurt, has a pretty iconic voice. Keith David as the War Doctor. Really, it's Keith David. I feel like if you know who Keith David is, there's nothing more to say than that. And he's had such a long, varied career that I don't even know where to start on this one. Just Keith David as the War Doctor. And the end of the Time War brings us the Ninth Doctor. In a lot of ways, the Ninth Doctor has lost who he is, and his entire purpose is to try and rediscover himself and give himself purpose again, figure out what his purpose is now that things have been changed forever. So, out of this entire list, in this entire exercise, I don't know why, I don't know what it is, but my Ninth Doctor casting is the choice I'm the most proudest of. Carrie Fisher as the Ninth Doctor. Again, aside from just being a terrific actress, and honestly quite an underrated one if you only know her for Star Wars, I think Fisher would absolutely slay at a lot of aspects of the Ninth Doctor. The tough, snarky facade the Doctor puts up while hiding that pain underneath. Especially the snark. Fisher would be brilliant at that if you've ever seen Carrie Fisher in anything. I am so unbelievably proud of this choice more than any other choice. So even though, in regards to the Fugitive Doctor and the War Doctor, I have said that we are going in chronological order. Oh! Also, since I did both the quote-unquote secret regenerations, I'm not doing the Valyard. That should be obvious by now, but should be said. I don't even know who I'd pick for that role. Anyway, so even though with the Fugitive Doctor and the War Doctor, I said we were going in chronological order, I am making an exception here. And you all know why. The 10th Doctor and the 14th Doctor. Both in personality, they are the exact same character, in part because they are played by the same actor, but they do have very different arcs. So after kind of rediscovering his zeal for his lust for life, his zeal for adventure, his passion, and regenerating into the 10th Doctor, the Doctor now has something else he needs to do. And this Doctor feels like he needs to uphold his responsibilities now in a way he never did before. He takes his moniker, the last of the Time Lords, seriously. He feels that with the Time Lords gone, he now holds it upon himself to play their role. And if you know me, the execution of this is why the 10th Doctor is my least favorite Doctor. But we're not going there right now. Meanwhile, as for the 14th Doctor, revisiting an old face is forcing the Doctor to confront his old scars and realizing what his constant lifestyle in motion means for him, unable to make any real lasting bonds or feeling like he can't, or always running from the repercussions of some of his adventures. Like stopping a Dalek threat might have also mean a new friend he made has died in the process, and now he is forced to confront all of that trauma. I don't think my choice here has had any big screen roles on TV or film that I can think of. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mostly know him for his stage work. But in one of his roles, including originating a pretty iconic and popular role on Broadway, as well as his work as a voiceover artist, this actor has I think a very similar energy to how David Tennant played the 10th Doctor. And that is Alex Brightman. This is why I said I would try to do this and I haven't all video. Rather than start with the explanation and end on the reveal, I want to do the reveal first and then explain myself. But yeah, I haven't done that yet. We have 3 Doctors left. Wow. So hopefully I will try to do that. So that brings us to the 11th Doctor. In a lot of ways, the 11th Doctor's arc is an extension of the 10th Doctor's, feeling he has to play his role in the universe as the last of the Time Lords. The problem is, making himself so big is now attracting enemies who want him dead more than ever. There's also a trick to the 11th Doctor. It's one of the few things I like about him is that you can feel the 11th Doctor's age. Like he just radiates the centuries of experience he has lived and is still trying to. Actually, that's kind of a good way to sum it up, just given a lot of the tragedies that go on during the 11th Doctor's time. The moment in Day of the Doctor summed it up best. He is the man who forgets. This is also, I think, really where that whole, a characterization I disagree with, mind you, the Doctor hates saying goodbye thing comes to mind. Because, he wants to live in the moment, but he never wants the moment to end, which is where you get things like the Angels Take Manhattan, and so on. So this is one of probably my most out there choices because, so first of all, my pick for the 11th Doctor in this hypothetical is Stephanie Beatrice. Now, on to that. This is one of my most out there choices, I think, because in a lot of Beatrice's roles, I don't think she's really played anything that made me go, that's it, that's the 11th Doctor. It's just her versatility from the very, very tough character she played in Brooklyn Nine-Nine to her role in Encanto to In the Heights. She's just, in her career, she has displayed a versatility that I think would lend itself to the various aspects of the 11th Doctor's personality. So that brings us to the 12th Doctor. During his lifetime, the 12th Doctor plagued himself with one question. Am I a good man? And he would spend much of his life and his travels debating this and trying to figure out the answer for himself. I don't think he ever found an answer he was happy with. Well, not until the very end, at any rate. But furthermore, this Doctor had quite a few arcs going, had quite an interesting story arc going for him. So, in his desire to find out if he's a good man or not, he did some pretty dark stuff, pushing him more to the extreme of the Seventh Doctor. Or, no, that was only in Deep Breath and a little bit into the Dalek. Sorry, I don't know where I was going with that. But he let himself get so engaged, so involved that, towards the end of series 8, he was kind of plagued with it, he was kind of plagued with all of these fallouts. He and Clara parted ways. Missy disappeared. He still hadn't found Gallifrey. So he felt his investment was for nothing. So he decided to not care, which led to his personality in series 9. He decided he was done caring now. But then he suffered similar consequences and fallouts for his actions throughout series 9. Clara actually died, kind of. Once again, he was on the run from Gallifrey and so on. And finally, it was all these actions that culminated in him finally finding a sense of acceptance and finding a happy middle ground in series 10. My fan cast for An American 12th Doctor is one of my favorite actresses, Wendy Malick. Also, in the alternative of this thought exercise, like if Doctor Who was an American show, who would you cast as the Doctor? As in an original version of the Doctor, Malick is my fan cast. She's an actress I've just loved since I was a kid. And again, she's played a wide gamut of roles that I think lend itself to showing off her various aspects of the fact that she could play the 12th Doctor. But beyond that too, I really think the thing that really solidified Wendy Malick as any kind of Doctor in my head was the Owl House and her performance as Ida. I think Ida is probably the character in her repertoire, in her filmography, most akin to the 12th Doctor. And remember, we already did the 14th Doctor when we did the 10th Doctor, so we will be stopping here with the 13th Doctor. A Doctor that I personally really enjoy. So the Doctor has always had optimistic outlooks on life, but they're a realist, let's be honest. So they've always tempered their explanations knowing that the outcome they would like to happen is not the outcome that could realistically happen. The 13th Doctor is the first one to go against that. She is the first one to actually be an optimist, and it's always been something I could relate with. Even when the universe punches her down, in a way very similar to the 8th Doctor now that I think about it, she always has the strength to get back up and push forward. So my pick here for the 13th Doctor is Mason Alexander Park. Like Stephanie Beatrice as the 11th Doctor, there's not really one role or comparison I can make that made me go, yes, they are the 13th Doctor. It's just more the talent they've displayed across multiple roles, from their stage roles like the MC in Cabaret or Hedwig in Hedwig and the Angry Inch, to, their screen versatility in shows like Quantum Leap or The Sandman, as poorly aged as that show is now. I think Park would be absolutely stellar as the Doctor. As the 13th Doctor, or like Wendy Malick, just as any Doctor. Alright, that's everyone. That's my thoughts on the exercise of fan casting Doctor Who as an American show. What are yours? What are your fan casts? What are your thoughts on mine? Start a conversation in the comments below. And remember to like, comment, subscribe. Click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload, and in the description box below, you'll find the link to my bluesky where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next time, whenever that may be. Well, Series 15 for certain, but whenever that may be.